we've looked at the wedging of the hand, or the volumetric hand, however you want to say it. Now we're going to look at the bones of the hand. Okay, now it seems pretty complex. If you've studied the foot already with me, you're going to find that it's not so complex. The terminology will roughly repeat, especially from the metacarpals on down. The only difficulty is in this grouping of carpal bones, and there are 8 of them, and I'm going to briefly discuss them, their names, and their overall collective shape together, and that'll be it. As a matter of fact, I've had to relearn their names just for this video, and it's in my short-term memory, and then that will go fall away probably by tonight when I have a good drink and try to forget about these little bones. So the important thing is just to know that they're there, their little shape, which is kind of a sphere or kind of a rocky block overall, but we can at least investigate their names quickly, and then we can draw them as more of a grouping, quite frankly, later on pretty easily. So let's dive in and get in close there. And I'll show you how I memorize them a little bit. I memorize them in this position here, and kind of clockwise. Let me go in closer. Clockwise from the start of the trapezium bone, and let's get something to point with. Maybe this will be a good one. So there are 8 of them all together. All right, and they make up the collective area of the carpals, or really the wrist. All right, so the first one here is the trapezium. This is the trapezium. I'm not making these names up. This is the trapezium. The next one is the scaphoid. Okay, trapezium, scaphoid. The next one is the lunate bone. Okay. Trapezium, scaphoid, lunate. The next one is the triquetral bone. Now, see where it splits into 2? We have the triquetral, and then there's another one over here, the pisiform. Pisiform, triquetral, lunate, scaphoid, trapezium. Trapezium, scaphoid, lunate, triquetral, pisiform. After that is this strange little bone, the hamate bone. Right in through here, it's got that little arm to it, the hamate bone. Then the capitate here, capitate, hamate, capitate, and then lastly we end up on the trapezoid bone in through here, and that covers all 8. So trapezium, scaphoid, lunate, triquetral, pisiform, hamate, capitate, trapezoid. Okay, those are the 8 bones. And what shape do they make up? A globular, little rounded, spherical, or blocky, ovoid shape from different configurations. Okay, so those are the little wrist bones that are analogous to the tarsal bones in the foot. These are the carpals. You know, we talk about carpal tunnel syndrome. It happens in this particular, roughly in this area. Okay, now, so we want to talk about, let me pull out the camera so we can get a better view. Here we go. Better, and best. All right, so a better view of everything. So we've talked about the carpal bones. Okay, we know that we have the radius and the ulna. Okay, this is the right hand. Okay, we know about pronating here. Okay, and supinating here, and or complete turn. Let's talk a little bit about and name the rest of the bones. You're going to find them refreshingly much easier. These are the 5 metacarpal bones of the thumb, of the index, the middle, the third, and then the final, the 4th, of the pinky bone. The metacarpal, they're just like in the foot, the metatarsal bones. Okay. After that, after the metacarpal, we have the phalanges of the carpal bones. This is the proximal. These are all proximal here. Proximal, close to the hand, proximity, proximal. The thumb is, again, like the big toe, the greater big toe, has a proximal, no medial, and just a distal. Okay, that's important. So, proximal, distal, proximal, medial here, Okay, medial, then the distal, the proximal, the medial, and then the distal with the rest of the fingers, or the bones of the fingers or of the hand here. Okay, make sure we get these in the right spot. Now, also what's interesting about these, if you flip it over, the greater metatarsal has these little sesamoid bones, these little floating bones here, just like we saw in the greater metatarsal of the big toe. So the same kind of thing is happening through here. There's a lot of an analogous material. Now, the bones are the most important part of the hand. The muscles that we'll discuss, and we won't discuss some of them, the interosseous muscles in between, etc., but the abductors here and the interosseous material in between are really important. The pads, if you will, through there are going to be very, very important to give form, more form to the hand. But this makes up the hand structure, the bones, the ulnar radius, the carpal bones, and then of course the metacarpals and the rest coming up and through. And then let's talk about their initial shape, and let's draw some hand bones, shall we? I think that will be our best course of action. And so we can talk about these bones more thoroughly. All right, so let's come on out here and let's get our materials and get cracking here a little bit further. So the bones now of the hand look, in my opinion, a lot like the bones of the foot, quite frankly. We just have this wonderful pronated thumb here, and that action really sets us apart. This kind of action here to grab, and so we have this opposable, movable position where we don't have that in the foot anymore, unfortunately. I wish we still had that. But we can talk about one or two bones, and they really can be the example for just about anything else for the rest of the bones. What you're going to have with them, the look of them, again, is a slight curvature up here. Let's make sure I'm completely in the camera. Otherwise, we'll confuse our audience. It will not be good. You're going to have this wonderful curve. Let me show you which bone I may use. I think I'll use a metacarpal here of the index finger. This one here. So this whole region as kind of a stand-in for pretty much everything that we draw. So they generally, the body of the shaft in profile, we have a longer shaft here like so. And then we have a condyle head. Here it's kind of a ball, it can be turned into a box here, and then also in through here. So that gives us this kind of dumbbell, if you will, shape. And then the tube arches this way, and we have some torquing through it. That's the overall basic structure of our bones and fingers. And so if we drew them from maybe a foreshortened position a little bit to help out, let me do that a little bit. So what that would look like here is this, and I'm going to make these more detailed in a moment. So we'd see something like this. Now this finger's coming right at us, so here's the top. And what we would see behind it is this. So this would be the front, this would be the back, this would be the front. So directly in back, maybe I'll pull it a little bit to the side in this direction to help you see here, okay? And then the shaft coming down a little bit, curved, this bulging over, and then the other condyle head would be here, around and over. So we get that positioning of what we need for our finger. And of course, if we had another finger, maybe the proximal would be here. Maybe it's going to go downward in here, and so we'd start to see the same idea, just a little bit changed. Here, these are all going to be similar. Okay, coming down like so, coming down and in and up and over, getting thinner in the body and then getting thicker at the condyle where they meet together. Now, all of this material here on the hand, anywhere we have an interlocking joint, we have ligamentation. Ligaments cover all of this hand, especially at the joints. They cover over collateral ligamentation on the sides, the tops. They ball up as far as the distal, okay? They also cover the carpal bones between one another. There is material running through and over. So there's really a nice coverage of ligaments and aponeurosis material in between, on top, and the sides, especially at the joints, to hold and really glue. Remember ligaments are bone to bone, and they really glue the bones together, metaphorically. They're in here in the joints. They're also in between in the ulna and the radius too as well. Now, getting back to the bones here, are kind of generic looking bone. And so what this will have with the condyle, where they meet, the in-between parts too will have cartilage. So the bones don't touch, but there's cartilage in between there, okay? Now, I don't know about arthritis. I don't have arthritis, but I'm suspecting that if you have arthritis, if you're of an age, or any age really, I suppose, then you could tell us, you may be able to tell me a little bit more, because I haven't just researched, I've just been ad-libbing this discussion at the moment in terms of that, what that entails, but we can assume that that's probably has something to do with bones, cartilage, and maybe the deterioration of that. I'd have to know for sure, but that's part of it. So this head in through here of the condyle comes in. We've seen that with the humerus. We've seen that with ball and socket type material. Humerus of the femur especially, and the condyle. Of course, we see them with all the feet coming together as well. Now, this has a little bit of a flattening here, generally all over, okay, like so, and kind of a torquing underneath, and that will come up, and then there's this slides under, like so, okay, like that. Then we come down, okay, over, across, and then the bones are sliced a little bit to meet the other condyle. In this case, the carpal bones, because we're at the first metatarsal, or the second metatarsal, roughly, that I'm using as an example. And these generally split into a double head over here. Not all of them do, but they split. They can split like that. They get narrower as they come out. Then they get to the body shaft and they get a little bit wider. Okay, like so. And that's a very typical kind of bone. Now, what happens a lot of times, we get ligaments over this. We get ligament here, tendon on top, coming through, okay, we get tendons here, coming through down. If I drew another bone, roughly connected together, like so, okay. If this was the proximal phalange, like I did over here, coming together, okay, over here and down, tendon coming over the top of that. So you have it on the bottom too, and then you also have fat pad material. I've got quite a bit of it. My hands are pretty stocky, Italian, Irish, laborer kind of hands, and so from my European ancestry, working labor type, and so everything is really thick. So there's a lot of fat pads, chunky hands, and so they can show up like this, in through, maybe even further, in through something like that here, over a little bit thinner when we get to the connective cartilage area, connector in through here, and then come back over to the fat pad in through here as well. Okay, so we have that. That's pretty typical. Coming over here to a little bit more of a foreshortened kind of view, we'll have this coming over. This really simple kind of boxy tube idea. Okay, and then there's a point where this gets shaved down a little bit. It's hard to show you on camera, but it gets a little shaved down on the sides a little bit. They're not completely cylindrical, they're a little boxy on the sides. So their conception can be box-like and tube-like in both, which is totally fine. So this is kind of straight and curves in through here coming back. This could be the double head back in through here, like so. Okay, we have that coming down. And we can have now the typical structure here, tendon coming over the top of it. You'll see a lot in Italian and Baroque sculpture, even beyond that, this coming together. You'll see this kind of little T shape that they do here of the knuckling. Looks kind of cool together. You'll see that all over. I just got back from a trip to Europe, and they have that idea coming on the top, the tendon coming on top, and of course there'd be fat pads underneath here, like so. And then underneath too as well. And the condyles here and here, they get thinner because we have tendons covering in cartilage, covering in ponderosa tendon-like material, and then fat pad in through here as well, like so. And depending upon how thick you are, roughly underneath there, like roughly like so. So that's a real quick idea about the finger. Maybe I'll just go ahead and put, what I'll do is I'll have the tendon come down here. Okay. And then we'll do, this is the proximal. We'll do this idea, it coming down. So proximal, medial, and then distal, like that, in through here, like so. So we have the the medial here, over here, and we get the interlock nicely in through here. Kind of a double head at times with a ridge and coming down and over, and then they all get pretty narrower here. So you'll want to draw your fingers like that, a little bit more narrower in through here, drawing the bones for finger replacement, and then making them a little thicker makes a pretty good looking hand in reality, to be honest with you, quite a bit. And then we have this, the last connection in through here, condyle, okay, like so. Tendon can come over, will come over. There's the tendon coming over here, and then on to the distal. And then generally the distal bones are more triangular in their, especially on the thumb, we're much more triangular in through here. So if you start out, it's really kind of like this whole shape, just a shape, even on the first finger, right in through here, and then we come over and it really turns underneath, right? So there's kind of like a double ridge here, and then coming on, narrowing over, and then ending up with a fatter tipped in. Of course, the nail can grow out of this material, this beta keratin material. Those of you that are dermatologists, and mine's ripped apart here from damage over time, so I have to keep shaving it off. I put a drywall screw in it a few years ago, and it never grew back properly. It's always kind of weird. Kind of damaged it. And so we have this bulkier head here, and then coming on down, it really narrows quite a bit, and it actually wants to turn slightly downward like this, and through here. And then we have the tendon coming across and down, and we're done. And remember, these are controlled by the forearm muscles, extensor digitorum on this side and through here. So they're puppet master control at the top. And then of course this tendon, these tendons all are really tubed. And so on the right thinner hand, you can start to see that quite a bit. So there's kind of there's a thickness to them, right? Absolutely. So they have that thicker quality to them as they come over, like so a little bit. So it's kind of a hard, quick lesson on the not hard, but just a fast lesson on the fingers a little bit. They're really not that bad, the bones through here, like so, and over, fat pad underneath, bone, right, fat pad underneath, and same thing over here, bone, right, and then the condyles, they get thinner, locked together with ligaments around collateral and in between finger to finger. If another finger was over here, like so. Material, interosseous material and muscle in between here as well, and then another fat pad in through here to take the blows of all the blunt force of work and play and athletics and hunting and gathering and sewing and whatever it is that we've evolved to do, and then another fat pad, of course, down into here. So that's the breakdown of the bones. Not particularly, I don't think particularly challenging, that bad I don't think. So now let's do one hand here, shall we? And maybe we should do something maybe from the side. Let's figure out what we want to do. And we'll draw one hand of bones. Let's get maybe a position or view to make it a little bit easier here. Maybe we'll bend those in like so. So maybe we're doing something kind of like that. How about that? So let's see. So let me go in a little bit, dive in, jump on in, and that way we can see a little bit clearer. I'll put my little trusty envelope here so we can kind of see that together. Get it in the camera, that would be smart. Right in through there, and then maybe we'll let this thumb come out so we can actually see it a little bit better. Yeah, now let's do something a little easier. Make sure it's not too hard for now. There we go. Okay. You'd think I would have done this already before we got on camera, but no, that's okay. Okay, I think that's fine. Doesn't take a genius, clearly. Okay. So we've kind of got a curled up view from the top. That'll give us a good picture of some of these bones. Now, in reality, I'm looking at it a little bit from more to the side a little bit. So I'm going to use this for reference, but when you're drawing from my drawing, draw my drawing. And just know that the angle's a little bit different from what we're seeing. I just want you to know that I'm drawing from a model here to really help. And that's really a good key point to make sure that we're doing as we're drawing from the model. In this case, skeletal model. Okay, so let's rough this in. We'll get a little bit of the wrist coming in through. Now you can start with a wedge, like we've done before with the last lesson. If you're doing them in chronological order, hopefully you are. If not, that's okay. Especially in YouTube land. My students, I don't know about that. So what we have here now is we can start to feel the radius here, okay? We'll split those up a little bit and make sure we get all this in the camera. Let's see if I can get up a little there maybe. Sorry about that. Make sure we got to get all this in. There we go. So we have that. So we have a little bit now of the radius. I'm just going to gesture block this in. It's really, really simple. Then through there, and then the ulna down and through here, and we start to see the gap between as it goes on through ulna in through here. How do we know it's the ulna? It's the opposite of the thumb. The thumb is the radius side, and the ulna has got the ulnar styloid process. So now we can start to say, okay, group these carpal bones, all of them, right? The trapezium, the scaphoid, the lunate, the triquetral, pisiform, hamate, capitate, and the trapezoid. Let's group them all together into one form here. And we just draw how we see them grouped together here. Kind of a boxier, sort of a boxy roundy form. It's kind of hard to describe. Rocky maybe geologic, maybe like a rock. So there's the gesture of all that, right? Coming on through, and then I'm going to get the thumb. We might run into this a little bit. That's okay. The thumb direction here and over, gesture here. Then I'm going to take the gesture of all this now with the hand to the metacarpal here. Okay, I'm right in through here, metacarpal, all the way through and over. I'm going to bring this line over. Kind of see where those springs are. I'm going to bring an entire line over here, right? End of the carpal bones in through here. Okay, over by the pisiform triquetral, I believe. Okay, here. Then I'll start to gesture in these from the metacarpal ending to the proximal, medial, distal. Just the gesture. Be loose with that. Be flowy. You don't have to name it as you're drawing it. I'm just doing it for educational purposes. Here, metacarpal, proximal, medial, distal. Okay. Third, metacarpal, proximal, medial, distal, and then of course the pinky, or fourth, metacarpal, proximal, medial, and distal in through there. There we go. Now we're cooking a little bit, and see how this has a rhythm. This whole system. Let me do it with a different color. Let's see. Here we go. So again, this is important. This whole movement here. Okay, where the metacarpal is, you're going to see that show up on every hand. That's kind of a nice little blockier area for the wedge. It will mimic a little bit this turn where the metacarpals meet the carpals in through here. And then sometimes roughly, see how they all have a rhythmic kind of direction this way too as well from those particular joints. Okay, and then of course you got here longer with the long middle finger, the very expressive right middle finger, if you know what I'm talking about. Probably do, unfortunately. I've had the expressive middle finger given to me in class a few times. Such is life. Okay, so I'm going to work this drawing of the bones more from the middle and then outward up and outward down. And the reason why is because there's going to be some overlapping in the thumb, and so I'm going to work it through here. Probably not too much, the index first. So we're going to start now here, okay? And I'm going to start to draw that condyle of the metacarpal of the second, okay? So that's a ball. So you could start out with kind of just a sphere, a structural gesture, and then coming down, and we're working with what we've drawn before here, okay? Then up, curved in, and then curving outward and curved, okay? To the head of the condyle, the joint, and over, rounded, underneath, that's a Kentucky word, Ohio, undered. That's just something I made up, I think. And then what you notice here is this moves in a little further this way. It gets narrower here, okay? I'm going to pull in now a little bit more so we can see a little closer. There we go. And we have that, but that's not the complete thickness. There's some torquing that's going on here, and then underneath, like so, okay? And then back through towards the end of the condyle. So let's get all the metacarpals first, even the thumb. Now the thumb is the opposable thumb. It's on the opposite side. Here's what I see. It's probably a little bit different from what you see. I see a little bit less of it. It's more overlap. So what I find is where the metacarpal joint ends, the head ends, it's right about here, okay, coming over, right in through there. I'll shade it down a little bit. Now we only have left the proximal here, coming up. I find its distance here, and it's starting to turn to the side because of its opposability here. The ending point now of the two heads here, and the other one here, and then we get that strong curve here. See that curve coming over, and then roughly through and on in and over there that way. So we have that like so, okay? And then lastly, we're locked in now to the distal, more triangular, more tilted to the side. So we see this coming over. It reminds me a lot of the radius top, kind of a carpenter nail head here, like so. Okay, where it's connected. And then we're going to go to more of a triangle here with a little bit of thickness right to an ending right there with the bone in through here. Now, let's just group this all together. Don't worry about drawing all of the 8s together. You've already memorized them, right, by name? If not, don't feel ashamed. It's okay. So we're just going to group them all together like so. And then that's good enough. And of course we have the the radius here, right through here and over, and a little bit more of that side pocket where ligaments, tendons can come through, and over. So all that's connected by ligament and tendon, and the ulna down and through here. Ulna is a little bit smaller in this point, and of course it has that serpentine-like snake's head at the top that grabs onto the olecranon of the elbow of the humerus and through there. So the more you draw, the more you memorize, and the more you can just start to draw these from more memory and observations easier. So the next one now, next metacarpal here of the middle finger, it overlaps. There's space between, but it overlaps. A little bit square head here, coming around, head, square. It's going to get overlapped a little bit by the third. Thinner, okay, coming through, thin here, thinner, then thicker. Then we have the head, it's kind of organicness, and it turns over like so, a little bit longer than I've got it right there is better. A little bit more of the side, right in there, side plane. Shave that side down, okay. They're all curved a little bit and arched underneath. Okay, you can put material underneath, especially because it's curved up, because the distals are touching, and raise up a little bit. Now we have the first, second, third, fourth here, okay, coming around a little bit smaller. Here's its head here, okay, space between, thinner, but also curved up through here to the condyle head, over and around, okay. Square it off here, up and through and over. There we go. Coming through, square it off, around, and we see that. And then we have the side of that metacarpal. And then the last one now, we'll move this gesture up and over a little bit. This is a little bit long, which is okay. Of our carpals. Then our last metacarpal starting to curve over in its connection. That will be all connected by ligaments around it. We can just draw that together. Coming out a little bit, up and through and over. See how this gets repetitive? It's pretty easy once you start to get it up and through, around, and the ball of the joints, more of a ball here, connected over. And then we get this side, really cylindrical kind of, let's get this idea like that coming over. That side plane there, a little torquing, and now we have the last metacarpal in through there. Okay, so now we can add the rest of the bones. It's just a matter of being diligent and being slow with it. Let me sharpen this just a little. Okay. There we go. And then we'll start to work these bones up through the index finger, over, I like to find their ending length, about right in through here, okay? So we see a little bit in my view, if you're drawing with me, this opening here, they open up a little bit, that'd be connected by cartilage here and over. Get a little straighter here, a little bit sharper pencil, okay, like so. And then they're going to, that's kind of rounded, and then they're just going to automatically curve on in perspective, come through. You can draw both of them together, the head, because they really are. When you're drawing knuckles of the hand with skin and material, you're drawing a little bit of both where they connect, like so. Then where they separate, a little separation from the medial to the proximal. We see an opening here, okay? And then downward, they're getting smaller and they're getting thinner into the medial to the distal, and then the distal on into the end with the bulb tip at the end there. And then we have our curve down and through, stepping down. It's not quite touching the table, right in through there. The ones that are touching the table are these two actually here. So now we have the longer finger, and I can tell you the gesture here is a little bit longer than I want it to be, so we can change that. Now we have separation. We have a double head of the condyle in this view. So the first thing, I'm just going to get all of it together with a little lighter structure line. Kind of a double head here. Here's one, here's two. Okay, make sure you have that. Then we're going to come curve up. Okay, let's find our length here. Up and through to about right there. So a little bit long from when I had it before. And we have the shaft of the body, which is thinner. And then the condyle to the proximal, to the medial, right in through here. A little divot in through there, and then this little area comes out and all that shaved down a little bit. So that curves out a little bit extra. Then they come through and on down, so we're going to hit here. It's not here. For my length, head, bulb, condyle, right? Body, shaft, thinner, curved, pointed down, keep your gesture, ending point here, right through the medial, and then the proximals, more triangular, body, condyle head, body, right, shaft, and then the ending head curved right in through there. Okay. We have two more to go. Not bad. Two more to go. Okay. So again, condyle to condyle, the largest grouping in through here. They kiss together, if you will. They're kind of a one larger ball. And they split apart as we're doing that. And through here, they come together. Okay. Thinner body, get your gesture, your length about right in through here. It's a little shorter than I had it. Right in through here. It's a little straighter, makes you up a little bit. Here and over. See, it's not as bad as you think. Condyle head, wider, shaft, thinner, curved, arched. Right, back to the condyle head. Some of them have the double heading in through there, curved, indented here. Just drawing what I see in a general sense, not too specific. Right, and through here. Okay, here's the gesture coming down, the length, pretty good. And through here should be a little shorter, medial, head, here, head, thinner body, triangular, really getting thin, here, on down. See how much thinner it got? To the distal, which is just kind of a triangle with a ball on the tip right in through there. And we have one more to go. Really not as difficult as anybody would want to make it out. If you can draw simple forms, spheres, cubes, cylinders, and perspective in space, you can do this. If you can't yet, don't sweat it. Go back and work on it. Go back and work on it. Gotta get that time practice. It's labor intensive. It's one of those labor intensive parts to life. Gesture here, okay, gesture. See how I'm going to change it here, gesture. The joint together for the proximal to the medial curving down here, and then distal right there, really gets small quickly. And also in foreshortening. So we have the double head here, okay. Gonna make it an oval, and I open it up where you can see in it a little bit, or you can see there. Okay, through here, then we body, thinner, curved. It's hard to show that when it's straight. This one curves in a little bit more, like so. Okay, over, condyle head connecting, squares off a little bit more in this one. A little divot where the tendon would fit. And ligaments through there. The bones still tell you a story, what's going on, if you pay attention to them, where they're cut and shaped. It's pretty amazing. Head of the medial, curve downward, inward. They're kind of like little chess pieces, like little rooks or pawns. Okay. Then we have the connection here, and I'm going to be even shorter, which is good. It's even better. Through here, curved in and out. And then lastly, the proximal, which we see up into the joint, and then downward, another curve. And we're there, and that actually touches the table. So we touch the table here, a little bit of a shadow here, and then a little shadow into here until we get to the carpal to help show that it's touching the table a little bit, I suppose. Kind of like that. How about that? Yeah, that looks better. Okay. And of course the thumb is on the ground too as well, because it's turning more to the side since it's more opposing the pinky, and they can touch together. Try to do that with your feet. If you can do that with your feet, call me, because I've got a business proposition. You and I together, we can join the circus and make a lot of money. I will manage you, and you can touch your big toe to your pinky toe, and we will make millions of dollars no matter where in the world we're at. So call me. Okay. A little time for silliness, right? Kind of shadowing through here a little bit to help set those down just a little bit. And there you go. That's really the hand bone there. Pretty simple. This whole idea here really too is this is also higher here, especially. Let me get a little dark going right in through here. All of this is a little soft. Maybe sometimes those soft charcoal pencils can really get so soft. All of this from really right in through here downward. Right. Now we can go really curved as it's coming down. Here, it wants to curve down, and of course we could go underneath and back through now. As this turns around the curvature of the cylindrical quality of the pinky metatarsal and through here. Okay. All right. So the rest of this is just kind of cake on it. Okay. So remember, cylinders, boxes, egg forms, blocky or wedges will serve you well in your journey to draw the hand better. So the next step is to get my camera correct. There we go. And the next step is to put the muscle forms on, and they're really not that complex. Most of what you want to know about the hand is here. We're going to have a few muscles here, right, on the bottom, in fat pads and muscle, and that's about it. This is like the bottom of the foot. Right, this is like the top of the foot, that wedge that kind of moves triangular ways and also downward. But this is the brunt. These fat pads take the brunt in your palm of your hand, and so that's what we're looking to put on. And then you really have got it. And then we'll practice putting on the hand with the lower and the upper arm, from the deltoid to the distal bone. That will get you what you need to know for drawing the arm. All of it, all the way through to the end of the distal, to the tips of the fingers. So from the distal to the deltoid. All right, okay, that's it. I will see you when we put muscles on some hands. You guys take care. Bye-bye.